So then we'll move on to, I think we want to review the warrant, but no one's here, so why don't we skip over to the goals?
Okay.
And has everybody had a chance to read the newest ones?
Okay, so the one thing I know we
I'm
had
gonna
talked
scoot down this way
about
because of the,
the maintain the
Yeah,
stabilization fund goal, okay? And we talked about trying to match it up with the
Reserves?
the reserves and the policies, and I could not figure out, one, how to word it just right, and two, how do we, because after you explained how you get your reserves and you try and budget in and all, I'm saying, how is that our goal, okay?
Because it's after the fact that you're actually finding out whether you met it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I rewrote number 2 to make it very, very simple, and that's just maintain a stabilization fund of 10%, okay? Which I thought was pretty self-explanatory. and-
Of,
Of the town's annual income,
okay.
all right? The only other words I thought might add of the previous fiscal year, what is the town's annual income? Is it the projected one, is it the past one, is it the certified one? Okay, so I mean, we could, but, I know what you were saying, Robin, about trying to make sure that they kind of all tied together, but I couldn't come up with wording that, to me, made sense for something we really can't do.
So the one I gave you is what the auditor does after the fact. So now to try to get ahead of the game and try to figure out what that estimate is.
Yeah. So that's why on that particular one, I just simplified it. If you guys disagree, let me know. And we'll rewrite it tonight. I tried to keep them simple.
Yeah, you want them simple. Any other comments on the goals?
Number 4, establish, we would change that to maintain since we already have one for our capital plan.
Good point.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, just
Go
so
right
I'm
ahead.
clear on what we mean by a capital plan, my view of a capital plan is all the capital, not certain capital. So I don't know if that's clear for everybody, but it's like, if we plan on building a building, if we plan on doing, all of that should be in the 5-year plan. I
You
feel.
usually have that in there, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, so everything we plan to do for the next 5 years. Whether we do it or not depends on other factors, but,
Well, no, but to your point, Joy, and I understand it, so if the town says, yep, we're gonna build this new fire safety complex over there, all right? That really wouldn't show up on the capital budget that you've been giving us for the next 5 years, would it?
Well,
Is that what you're talking about?
let's talk about the public safety building that they're doing now. You're right, that actually was on and moved and moved and moved, and you have to remember, since I've been here 12 years, we've been talking about that. We've gone through several committees. We've had $20,000 appropriated and put in a capital. And then we did the highway barn, and then, they were asked to wait. So it just kind of came off of the capital plan because we didn't really know when, where, and what cost.
Mhm.
So I think to Joe's point, I think he's correct. It would be helpful to just figure out everything and kind of do a timeline. Realistically, do we know which buildings we might need to? We may not, but once we start to understand and start to see it coming, then that's probably the appropriate time to put it on. But I also think it would be good a good exercise for you to do and to work with the municipal building committee to kind of say, so what do you think is going forward? And, you meet with many of the committees, so that probably would be a good exercise to do. But I have a certain capital 5-year plan and way I've been doing things for a while that seem to have worked. The finance committee has turned over. You sound like you want to get more involved in that. So any way that you want to start looking at trying to gather more information or expand it, do a ranking system, we can have a conversation about how you'd like to do that. Mine has been pretty bare bones. Here's what we have, here's what I know I have conversations with the department, here's what I think's coming up soon. but in no way is it an exhaustive list of what we're gonna need for capital. And you'll notice that things will appear, every 3 years, something will appear that was never there before, because all of a sudden it's rise to the level of being needed in that year. So we swap out.
So we could have basically a plan of all the things we might need, a 5-year capital plan, and then we have the current year's budget of what is going to be funded this year. And of course, with that, you might have what's funded next year and the year after, but what's on a 5-year capital plan may or may not always be in that, because it's some of that's going to be far in the future.
Correct.
That's how we do it, where we will put, I kind of color code it for funded future projects, so you see it, so it's not like it's not on your radar, and you push it out. I think we have it pushed out to a little bit beyond 5 years, but, I mean, that's an idea too,
Yeah.
and just so it's in front of you.
Yeah, can we do that?
Sure, I would recommend maybe that you take a look at some other towns. You can go online and take a look at some of their capital plans and see if there's some level of detail or way that you'd like to structure it, if you'd like to change this one. It would be something good for the finance committee to work on.
Okay.
Then, if you were working on it, you'd have an opportunity to continue to have these conversations that you've talked about with the departments over the year. So when it comes to special town meeting, they're not coming in cold. You already know, and you're very familiar with what their capital needs are.
Getting back to the goals in general, are we all set with where they are now?
So
As we've rewritten them anyway.
I would say I'd forget to maintain and go back to establish.
Okay.
We're going to do something a little different.
Throw this pen away, get a pencil.
Establish and maintain.
There you go.
So we keeping established or both, established and maintained? Okay.
No, I would say, you have one established already. You
Yeah.
may want to say, review, revise as needed, and maintain.
Okay, and you're going to send a new set out?
Yes.
Okay.
If I can understand all the scribbles that you guys all just had me.
Okay, so I think we're all set with the goals for the time being, so.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
And I've missed the last couple of meetings, but whoever drafted 5, why the choice of the word seminar for the format of a meeting with the Board of Selectmen?
Well, that was, well, we were going to have some sort of a teaching exercise with the selectmen. We were going to talk with them, and there was going to be some other,
Well, I think we usually call them workshops,
Yeah.
because usually they're an off night and a working something. Perhaps seminar came in when you were talking about having someone come in and do, like the auditor come in
Yeah.
and explain something to you. So that might have shifted over to thinking about a seminar.
we could put a workshop, that's fine.
All right, I'll change that.
It's a good catch.
Okay, so moving on, Hank will go ahead and rewrite all of that, and get it out to us, and then we can look at it.
Tomorrow.
Okay. So the next one, I guess, would be the warrant, is what we're up to.
So the selectmen last night approved the money articles. Pending your approval, as we've done in the past, they go through it, they make their changes and recommendations, and then they approve the motions, and then they know that it comes to here, and they've,
Have you got one more?
sure, I'm sorry, didn't I skip?
Thank you.
So their approvals are contingent upon any revisions that you want, and I would ask that tonight, when you make your approvals or changes, that you also do it pending anything from Attorney Cosgrove, because I will make these adjustments tonight after this meeting and send them to him. So he has the final, and then if he has any tweaks, he can tweak it Generally, he doesn't make any changes in substance of what you're trying to do, he just might fix a word or make it more clear or something. Most of the motions he's either seen already or had a hand in preparing. Under Article 1, the recommendation is, this is appropriation of funds for unpaid bills of a prior fiscal year. This is for WB Mason, its various departments, office supplies in the amount of $862.86. This would come from the FY19, this year's budget, municipal offices, expense and equipment. And I would recommend that you approve this motion.
You hear any motion on approving Article 1?
A motion we support, Article 1.
Second?
All in favor of supporting Article 1?
Aye.
Article 2, intra-departmental transfers and/or appropriations for FY 2019 budget. The motion is, I move that the following sums be raised by taxation or transferred, whichever is indicated below, and appropriated to the following accounts for the purpose for which funds may be expended from the latter accounts, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen or Chief Procurement Officer to enter into such contracts, including leases, and to take such other action as may be necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of the foregoing vote, each item being considered a separate appropriation. The first is to the account of Sewer Enterprise Fund to reimburse the salary of the Water Sewer Coordinator in the amount of $86,166.14. That would be coming from the account, the RRFA Water Superintendent salary. That's the $250,000 that we had set aside for the Water Superintendent salary from Exxon. Sewer Capital Replacement Equipment account. The purpose to transfer monies into that account is to fund repairs to the RBCs 1 and 2, various capital projects, in the amount of $117,000 from the sewer retained earnings. General insurance, VFIS increase, in the amount of $32,000 from the ambulance receipts. Police salaries, we've settled the union contract, and the amount is $38,122 from raise and appropriate. Contract obligations, which we have classification changes and upgrades, $25,000 raise and appropriate. And FY19 conservation services, the Lakes by Pathemy survey, $7,900, and that would be from the municipal waterways receipt appropriation. The Board of Selectmen approved this motion contingent upon any information that you, or changes you wanted to have, and I recommend that you approve this motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we accept it. Article 2 is printed.
You hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just have to add, what's bathymetry?
I think you said it more correctly than I did. It is a water testing system, is my understanding. I did, the Lakes and Ponds Committee is very involved in working with the water quality
Bless you.
and
No,
the
it's
sewer system.
Testing for water quality. Oh, okay.
The next is capital items and related contracts. I don't think you'll see much here that is different from what you had recommended. Actually, I think it's exactly the same. I move that the town vote to appropriate the following amounts to the following departments' respective accounts for the FY19 budget to be expended for the following purposes, each item being considered a separate appropriation, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen or Chief Procurement Officer to enter into such contracts, including leases, and to take such other action as may be necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of the foregoing vote. For the fire department, it would be replacement of the fire inspection vehicle in the amount of $42,266 from free cash. Highway, there are 3 items, a 2019 F-350 drive 1-ton dump truck for $54,700 from free cash, a 2019 F-250 pickup regular cab, $38,000 from free cash. And the Freightliner, 2020 Freightliner 108 SD, conventional chassis, central hydraulic system, plow hitch, with a 10-foot chassis-mounted sander in the amount of $152,400 from free cash. For Police Department, 2 cruiser replacements in the amount of $108,000 from free cash, 1 unmarked vehicle in the amount of $42,000 from free cash, and a water hookup for the school loop, $72,000 from free cash. Town Hall, electric signboard, $40,000 from free cash. Technology communications, replacement and improvement, $75,000 from free cash. If you remember, the last time I was before you, I had $25,000 and then $50,000, you wanted that combined. Last night, when I met with the Board of Selectmen, I did inform them of that, your request, and that the intention going forward will be to try and keep that funded at $75,000. Inspectional services, the 4-wheel drive truck in the amount of $30,000 from free cash, for a total from free cash in capital of $654,366. The Board of Selectmen supported this motion, and I recommend the Finance Committee support the motion.
Do we hear a motion on Article 3?
Make a motion that we support Article 3.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next one, Article 4, is a transfer to and from stabilization funds. This is, I move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate the following sums to and from the following accounts and funds. To the stabilization fund in the amount of $679,254 from free cash for the purposes of reserves. Note that the stabilization fund is presently $613,873. If we add in the suggested amount of $679,254, we will have a balance in the stabilization fund of $1,293,127. The Board of Selectmen supports this motion, and I would recommend the Finance Committee support this motion.
I make a motion we support Article 4.
And a second? Anybody second?
Second. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Article 5 is acquisition of easements needed for a water line culvert repair and replacement. The Board of Selectmen did approve this motion. It's up to the Finance Committee whether you're wanting to make a recommendation on this one. Sometimes you have made recommendations on non-money articles, and sometimes you have chosen not to.
Do you hear any comment on that?
It's funny, why does it say believed to the owner of that property, believed to be David Lucier?
We haven't done a title search, so it's the best
So you
guess.
better
Which is
leave it.
also one of the reasons why the words eminent domain is in there. It's being recommended by town council. And you'll see that we have a note down the bottom that if someone stands up and says they object to the eminent domain, mainly if the owner has an objection to that, that if it's removed, it will go from a 2/3 vote to a majority vote. We have no intention of taking it by eminent domain. I mean, it's not it's an agreed-upon easement.
The eminent domain is just covering the legal technicalities and...
Correct.
a few other
It would
things.
be to fix any deficiencies in the title.
Do I hear any request to support, not support, skip
Yeah.
it?
You're right, normally we don't make any comment on these kinds of articles.
I can remove the recommendation for the Finance Committee if you wish, or I can just put NA.
Yeah, I would, Mr. Chairman, I would say NA, I don't know why.
Why don't you make a motion, we put NA on it? and-
Okay, I'll make a motion that we put NA on it.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Article 6 is to create, did you finish that? Did I start too fast?
Yeah.
Okay. Article 6 is to create a water stabilization fund. The motion is I move that A, the town create a water stabilization fund under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5, for any purpose needed to support the town's public water supply system and/or water enterprise fund. And B, the town transfer $50,000 from the water enterprise retained earnings to the water stabilization fund. The Board of Selectmen approves this motion, and I recommend the Finance Committee approve this motion.
Do we
I
hear a
will tell
motion?
you that in the motion, I believe that I have an extra chapter that I will be removing, which is fund under chapter, Mass General Law chapter, so I will remove the first chapter. there's a
Oh, okay,
typo
I
there.
see. All right. Do I hear any comments on Article 6?
So is this stabilization fund work the same way as the town stabilization fund? In
Yes,
other words,
sir.
it takes a town meeting vote to move the money versus just the sewer water commissioners?
Yes, sir. So it's a majority vote to put it in, it's a 2/3 vote to take it out.
Okay. So they're gonna have to go along the same procedure of putting something before the town meeting when they want to
Correct.
buy a pump, whatever.
They want to basically use the same process that the general fund uses.
Okay. I make a motion, we support Article 6.
I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 7 is to create a sewer stabilization fund. And this is motion, I move that the town create a sewer stabilization fund under Mass General Law, Chapter 40. Again, I will remove that first chapter. Section 5, for any purpose needed to support the town's public sewer system and/or sewer enterprise fund. And B, the town transfer $200,000 from the sewer enterprise retained earnings, $27,142.74 from the sewer Millennium Trust Fund, and $1,012,356.16 from the Sewer Capital Project Trust Fund, for a total of $1,239,498.90 to the Sewer Stabilization Fund. The Board of Selectmen approved this motion. I recommend the Finance Committee approve this motion.
Do I hear any discussion on Article 7?
I just need, I'm gonna jump in because I got the interest for the quarter, September 30th.
You want me to add that in?
Add that in.
What am I changing?
So the 27,142.74
Mm-hmm.
becomes 27,238.86,
Okay.
and the 1,012,356.16
Mm-hmm.
becomes 1,015,940.
Wait a minute. 1,015,000.
940,
Yep.
89 cents.
Okay.
And then the total revised total is 1,243,179.75 cents.
Okay.
So that will close these two mysterious trust fund accounts I have and actually put them in a stabilization that has some backup to it.
What is the advantage to either of these department, the water or the sewer, to have a stabilization account versus an enterprise account, which only they have access to anyway?
Well, the enterprise account, they would need to just leave the money in retained earnings and keep just letting it flow through. What they're trying to do is to create stability so that they have their savings account, and then they'll leave a little bit of cushion into the enterprise account. I think it's prudent, and I really applaud them for doing this, because it's not so easy to move things around. It's a much more transparent process, and the town has more say. So
Yeah. Okay.
I would applaud them for making this change.
Do we hear any more discussion on Article 7? Do we hear a motion?
Make a motion, we accept it.
As
Second?
amended with the
As
numbers?
amended.
As amended,
yes,
yeah.
with the
Thank you.
corrected items. Thanks.
Thank you.
Julie, second?
Second.
Eight.
Did you take the vote?
Oh, all in favor?
First, second?
Aye.
I should put yes right here. I don't know.
Thank you for getting that last bit of interest.
Yeah.
I like the way she just waits right to the end to get it, so.
I know, I found in the investment company, I need that numbers, I need those numbers.
Good. So Article 8 is Personnel Bylaw Amendment, Classification Plan Update, and we've gone over those with changing the Director of Assessing, Town Planner, Building Commissioner from an N7 to an N8, and adding the IT technician. The motion will be to move the article as accepted, be accepted as printed. The Board of Selectmen approved this motion, and I recommend the Finance Committee also approve this motion.
Roughly how much money is being added to each one of those? Couple
At this time, I don't have an amount, because that hasn't been reviewed. So right now, there is no change.
So we've
Put aside
But we had to put
25,000, right?
aside some money to do that.
Yeah. Question.
And we have, the Board of Selectmen, in one of their goals, and yours also, is to take a look at some of the salaries for present department heads, non-union, as well as we're in the process of the clerical union contract, and we're trying to create some parity between those two groups. As you know, and we've discussed before, as we're hiring new people, they're coming in at a much higher rate, and those people who have been here for a long time have not had adjustments appropriately for what they should be being paid. So we'll be coming back to you once we have an opportunity to work with HR, the Personnel Board, and the Board of Selectmen on making some recommendations for changes.
Okay.
And
Some
those
of
are-
them may not, some of the recommendations may not be aligned with just these classification changes. We do know that the classification changes do need to happen, but there still may be some employees who are not changing their classification that still needs an upgrade because maybe they've fallen below what their classification has. So we'll be bringing together to you something going forward.
I'll make a motion to support Article 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Article 9, this has changed since the last time that I brought it forward to you. If you remember, the motion that we had talked about was to move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate $130,000 from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation to fund the remainder of FY19 salaries for 5 firefighters, and to effectuate the rest of the article. The Board of Selectmen last night asked to remove that second piece. They would just like the motion to fund to the end of the year, and then we come back at the next budget. So not having this special town meeting make a decision on whether or not to fully fund. So that was the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
So this is going to actually get us to the end of the year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any,
The end of the fiscal year.
yeah.
Question. It sounded like it was discussed at the previous selectmen's meeting, which I only saw bits and pieces of. Have the selectmen received the information that we've received from the chief that justifies keeping the 5 on?
I think that they have received pretty much the same backup material that you have. I think that they want to have a fuller discussion with you and have that done at an annual meeting rather than a special meeting.
Any other discussion on Article 9?
So, if I
Go
may,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, so the selectmen chose not to fund, I'm confused, the funding is only going to be for a fiscal year anyway.
Right. If you look at the language in the article, it says to see if the town will authorize the fire chief pursuant to his authority under Mass General Law, the provisions of which Charlton Town Meeting accepted in 1931, and in accordance with the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee, to appoint 5 firefighters as permanent employees when the SAFER grant ends on January 8th. So the portion that they've taken out of the warrant was the portion that said to appropriate, transfer and appropriate the $130,000, and to do what the rest of this article says. So what they basically said is, they're just moving to transfer and appropriate the $130,000. They have not gone on in this motion to add in that they authorize the chief to appoint the firefighters permanently.
So basically, we took out the permanently.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
So-
Go ahead.
So what would the chief appoint them as? What
They
are they
won't.
appointed as now?
So then, there'll be no appointment, there's no authorization, in the language that the Board of Selectmen wanted to do, there is no authorization in this article that authorizes the chief to permanently hire these additional 5 firefighters. So basically, there is no, since there's no authorization, there's no promise. Basically, remember, we were trying to take it to town meeting to get a sense from town meeting, do you want to fund this or you don't going forward? So what they've decided they want to do is defer the conversation about the 5 firefighters and the appointment of those firefighters in the annual budget process, rather than have it being done on town meeting floor, at a special
So,
town meeting.
I think
So
that
all they're
they are
doing
not
is,
classified as
I
permanent.
guess that's what I was
Yeah.
asking, so if they're not classified as permanent, what would they be classified as after the grant runs out? Temporary?
Gone.
Gone.
well, they'll stay
No,
until.
No, we're putting the grant runs out,
But we're funding them through June 30th.
Yes.
so what are they gonna be called?
On, well,
Well,
right
they'd
now,
be
they're
temporary.
probably firefighters under the SAFER grant as established on, okay? They're not permanent, they're not part of our, you must have like a list of something, I'm trying to, seniority list or something. They probably aren't part of a seniority list or part of some record that says we own them,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, so the way we had it set up originally is if this, when the safer grant runs out and they don't get another one, they're simply gone. Now, what we're saying is we're gonna fund them till the end of the year, and at that point, they could be gone.
Well, and I think what it's doing is saying that we don't know whether or not the grant is going to be renewed. So we're only funding them till the end of the year to finish up, and we should know about the grant, and then make the decision then.
Any further discussion on Article 9? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to accept?
I make a motion that we support Article 9.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And just if I may, what, since that's 130 from ambulance receipts and there's another 32, so what's the current balance in the ambulance receipt account?
Now, this is through August 31st, I don't know, September, receipt goes to that. Well, for receipts, it's through that. 2,386,204.86. That doesn't include anything that was appropriated at Maytown meeting to come out, so I still have to take that.
Okay, thank you.
amount out.
Did you take your final vote?
Yep.
Okay. Next is the, Article 10 is the local gas tax. We've talked about that. It was passed already once. We need to reauthorize it to take it back up and have it keep moving forward. And the motion is that you approve the article, move that the article be accepted as printed. The Board of Selectmen approved the motion. I would recommend the Finance Committee approve the motion.
Do I hear any discussion on Article 10? I think it's a good idea. I'm not gonna read that whole thing, because I won't
Yeah.
understand it.
Accepted as so moved.
Do I hear
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is the Article 11, which is a zoning article. I'm not sure if you wish to weigh in on that. I don't have you down, as you don't generally weigh in on zoning articles, but I can add it if you feel strongly.
No. Nope.
Okay.
Jump into that fray.
And Article 13 is a petition.
Wait a minute.
So that would be all of the ones
I
coming
have a
up for
question
you.
on that August 31st ambulance receipts. Is that fiscal year or calendar year?
I didn't post September receipts yet. September, that's, it's current, I just ran it
Okay.
for today, but I haven't posted September receipts yet.
Do they actually understand that on these marijuana votes, they're accomplishing nothing?
Excuse me?
On all these marijuana votes, they're actually accomplishing nothing, because if they do all this and the town doesn't have it, Dudley will. Well, Sturbridge will. So, I mean, I know that they're very passionate on the marijuana, but they're really not accomplishing anything, except losing some money for the town.
Well, and/or preserving local communities, if that's what the voters choose.
Oh, that's if if the voters choose, that's fine, but I mean, as far as the marijuana thing, it's coming and it'll be around here somewhere. Even if it's not here, it's gonna be there, so. I have
If I may,
some,
it's hard to come up with many other low-impact businesses that would bring in that much revenue.
yeah, Yeah, it's,
And again, I'd repeat, I don't think the people on Old Worcester Road think 1 million square feet of grow facility is low impact.
if anything within a half a mile to a mile of Route 20 is going to wind up commercial industrial, it's just the way it will be over the next 10, 20 years, 30 years. You can look at Westboro or Southboro or some of those towns in Northborough, and that's Route 9 in that case. But if you come out here, Route 20 is the one that's coming down through Oxford and coming along. And it's, you know, over in Sturbridge, it's like that, it's just,
50 years from now will be a different perspective of it. You have Treehouse Brewery, and at one point there was Prohibition, so now everybody runs to Treehouse Brewery. It's just different time, different place. It'll be treated differently in years from now.
one other thing I'd like to add is I had a cousin who was a heavy-duty alcoholic and drank himself to death, and I had a stepdaughter that got into drugs, and she didn't make it either. If they'd have both been on marijuana, I'd have been happier, but anyway, that's beside the point.
Do you have any questions for me regarding special town meeting? Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work with you on this project.
Oh, okay.
I will make these changes and get them off to town council. Linda, do you have any questions or thoughts, concerns, Madam Moderator?
I just wanted to know which of the articles did not have the appropriate timing for the public hearing?
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. For your information also, Article 12, the zoning ban for marijuana, was submitted to the planning board. It was not advertised in time, and it will not be able to move forward because there has to be a hearing on it.
So we're taking that out.
We're not taking it out, it'll just, the moderator will be asking for the planning board's recommendation. If the planning board is unable to give a recommendation, then it will not be able to be acted on.
All right, so that'd be,
So it'll be passed over.
So I'm sorry, what wasn't done in time? A hearing, was it?
If you look on page, what is it? The bottom of page 7, it says, "No vote shall be taken on any motion relating to Article 11 and 12." That's because they're zoning. Below, until the planning board has submitted a report with recommendations thereon to the town meeting. If 21 days have not elapsed since the public hearing before the planning board was held on the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw set forth. It actually, I asked them what their time frame was, and they needed to advertise 14 days before town meeting.
I'm not gonna have 14 days now.
Okay.
And we generally use the 21-day rule because that gives them an extra week. But legally, it would only have to be 14 days if they had the meeting before town meeting.
Does anyone have
Anything
anything else? One thing, I just wanted to add, one of the reasons I changed the date, the time for Monday's meeting is the selectmen meet at 6. If we meet at 6:30, it doesn't give us much time at all to talk to them. So the meeting for the Finance Committee will be the same time as the selectmen at 6 o'clock. If you can make it, great. If there's problems getting here, well, we'll work it out. I think we just usually chat with the selectmen and see what, anything's popped up and a few other things. Then we adjourn to the town meeting. But that's why I just had adjusted the time so they'd match up.
Probably be easier to get in at 6 than it will be at 7.
Yeah.
The meeting is here, though. We don't meet there. It's 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
we meet here with the selectmen, and then
Okay.
we head out.
Last night, when the Board of Selectmen went through the motions, when they were looking at this, David Singer was not there, and Chairman McGrath had to leave. So they did leave the marijuana for a discussion on whether or not to support or not that zoning, or whether or not they wanted to take any action until 6 o'clock that night. So they chose not to make a decision, with 2 members missing.
Anyone have anything else for the,
I just,
Go
I
ahead.
got a question. As I started to go through your packet, and thank you very much, I can appreciate the work that you did, okay? In the last packet was the management letter
Yep.
And then there were 3 pages in front of it, which I'm assuming are your responses to
Yes.
what was in here and things that you've done.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of this pertains to, when I'm looking at numbers, up to June 30th of 2017?
Yes.
Okay. Because some of the numbers I was trying to correlate back, and I realized, oh, wait a minute, I gotta go
We're
back.
gonna go back.
Yeah.
Gotta go back a long time. Okay. Thank you.
Did Sherry get that packet?
Which packet?
Just
Warrant?
has-
Packet?
The big package.
You got the warrant article, right?
No, no, no.
No, the
Packet.
big
She
needs
to get a full packet of what you guys
Somebody was
got.
over there.
It's gotta go to our.
Is that, the-
No, that's fine. No.
We took the extras from.
oh, shoot. Yeah, I'll bring them Monday. I think I took them home last night, and I didn't bring them in when I brought my stuff. I didn't think of it, so I'll bring that Monday.
So as I was going through the packet, I just want to know how we want to handle questions, all right? Do you want me to save, if I get a certain section and I get a couple of questions, you want me to save it for the next meeting, and we can do that on a meeting by meeting versus emailing questions? Or,
Either way, whatever you want to do is fine.
well, just, how do you want to see us?
I don't have any problem if you want to email her a question, just make sure I get a copy of it, and just make sure I get a copy of
Well,
the answer.
anything I do, I would copy the whole,
Yeah.
I just didn't know whether you want to be inundated with an email every couple of days saying, hey, how come there's a comma after,
I would recommend that you not email the whole board. If you have a particular question that just pertains to you, that you email her directly, if
Yeah.
the chairman's okay with that. But I would recommend that more than not, if you have a question, probably other people may too benefit, and that you bring it to a meeting so that we don't have any violations of the open meeting law.
Okay, that's why I was asking, Robert. I want to make sure we had a protocol here
Yeah.
that worked for everybody.
Yeah, we're trying to make sure that we're kind of going down the right path, and we're finding that there's some gray area, so we're just trying to,
Okay.
Just personally, I want everything to be just the right way.
Yep.
No side trips or anything else. I
We're
want
all
everything the right
trying
way.
to-
So whoever looks at it, it's what was there. It's everything there is.
All right.
so there would be benefit to bringing
If I
it.
do have a question, I'll email it to you, and then once I get your answer, if I feel as I should bring it up at the next board meeting, I'll let you know, hey, I'm going to bring this up at the next meeting, so you'll be prepared. And
Yeah, let me know if you are,
Right.
just let me know.
Yeah, and we'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the Finance Committee tonight? Seeing nothing, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And the meeting will terminate at 7:13.
Oh.